Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic day today, and welcome back to Run8 Train Simulator. Today, we're going to be taking a very short but very fun trip. We're going to be taking the B-FSTLAC, which is a Baretable reposition movement from the First Street storage facility near downtown Los Angeles, and we're going to be taking the cars out to the Hobart Yard near Commerce, California, just east of Los Angeles. Total trip is about only a mile out and a mile back, but it requires a lot of switching. We're going to have to first pick up the cars in the First Street Yard and bring them back over to Hobart, and then we're going to have to probably split the train into two at Hobart. So it is going to require a lot of work, even though it is a very short run. Additionally, first part of this trip, we are going to actually have to grab some power for the train. That's why we're here in the Commerce locomotive shops just outside of Hobart Yard. We're going to grab two locomotives and run them light power over to the First Street Yard. Light power just means we basically have locomotives, no freight cars behind us, and from there we'll grab the cars and bring them back to Hobart. We are also back on Depot Plus. We also have a dispatcher on duty today, so we'll be having to contact them once we get moving westbound. But for now, we'll go ahead and grab two locomotives and head on over to First Street. So I've gone ahead and picked these two units for our trip over to First Street and back. We have the BNSF 5694 and that SD70 ACE behind it. We only need two engines for this trip. It's a very light load considering it's only a bunch of empty well cars, so we aren't going to be struggling up and down any hills. Additionally, I prefer to have two units for this trip facing back to back, so that way we can use this 5694 out to First Street, and then we'll use the ACE on the other side going back to Hobart, so we don't have to Y the locomotives anywhere or turn them around. So that's why I picked these two. They're in great position, and they're also in position for us to just shoot straight out towards the First Street Yard. So we'll go ahead and get them powered up, and we'll go ahead and jump on in the cab and get ready to go. Alright, first things first, we're going to go ahead and power up the locomotives. We want to do that individually because I don't want to start all the locomotives up, so we're just going to go ahead and bring this over, engine to the run position. It's going to start powering up. I'm also going to power up the ACE as well. Both of those engines are going to start running. You'll hear them powering up here. And once they're powered up, notice it says engine running. ACE is still coming up here, and the ACE is now up and running, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump on into the cab here. Make sure our switches are all correct here. Make sure these four switches are up. They are. We'll leave these four down. We don't need cabin lights, step lights, any of that stuff. We do need the engine run, gen field control switch, and the dynamic brakes on. Come back here, make sure the engine switch is set to run, and we have short hood lead. For the headlight setup, that is all looking good. We'll go ahead and set the headlight to dim at this point. And what we're going to do next here is we're going to disconnect from the rest of the power. So we're going to come back down off of the locomotive, and we're going to walk around to this side, walk down the locomotives. We're going to come all the way down here to in between these two locomotives. So what we're going to want to do is I'm going to, first of all, close the angle cocks, which are the valves that prevent air from flowing through the air hoses. We're going to go ahead and close on both sides. Actually, yeah, we'll close them on both sides. And then what we're going to want to do here is we're going to go ahead and disconnect the couplers. Now, we can't do that right now because it's yellow, and that would mean that there's tension on the knuckles. So what I'm going to want to do here in a second is I'm going to reverse my two locomotives a little bit back into the rest of the power, and that way we can release that tension, and then we can open the couplers and disconnect the locomotives. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and turn on the upper left-hand bar. That way I can just see what my locomotives are doing. Go ahead and release the parking brakes, and then I'm going to set the locomotives to reverse. Brakes completely released. We'll go ahead and just shove slightly back into the locomotives behind us here. And there it is. That's all we need. We'll go ahead and bring it to a stop again. We'll go ahead and open the coupler knuckles here on both sides. And we'll disconnect the air hose. And we'll pull the locomotives forward just to make sure they are pulling forward and pulling away from the rest of the train, which they have. We'll bring it to a stop. And there we go. Our locomotives have been disconnected. We can finish up our work. And before I head back to the front of the train here, I'm actually going to go ahead and get our EOT device attached. Basically activate the EOT, put a marker light on. There we go. That is all looking good. We can start heading back up to the front of the train. Alright, pretty much ready to go here. A couple things I have done before departure. Gone ahead and updated our train symbol to say B-FSTLAC. And since we are on the Depot Plus multiplayer again today, I've gone ahead and updated everything in their computer as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to verify everything is correct, and we'll be on our way. Alright, first things first, we are the B-FSTLAC. That is correct with the BNSF 5695. Oh, 5694. Need to change that. Alright, there we go. Now B-FSTLAC with the BNSF 5694. See, this is why you always want to double check your paperwork to make sure you've got everything matched up between what your paperwork says and what the locomotive says. Direction of travel is going to be westbound. Length is 147 feet. Yep, only 2 engines, so we're really small. HBT 0, tons 0, TB 0. Yep, we don't have any weight behind us, so we're just locomotives. Also 0 on the loads and empties. Units total 2, axle count 12. Max speed is, well, we will have Baretable, so we'll be able to go 70. Yep, that's all looking good. So we are good to go here. Just do a quick brake test here. I'll go ahead and set the locomotive brakes all the way to full, just so we have something holding us. And then I'll go ahead and release the train brakes. Release to 90. Go ahead and set them again. 84. Good air. So we're good to go at this point, heading to the First Street Yard. Alright, so we're ready to go here. What we're going to do here is we're going to go all the way out. Roughly the field facility is right here on the dispatch board. We're going to come through Eastern Avenue, go through Hobart Yard, and we're going to pop out roughly CP Hobart right here. And then we'll pop out and we'll try and cross all the way over to Main 4. And then from Main 4, we're going to go ahead and come down Main 4 through Olympic and into the Amtrak Yard, which is also where the First Street Yard is located. And that's where we're going to be picking up our Baretables for the day. And then we'll take them back out through Olympic on Main 4. And then out of Main 4, we'll cross back over again onto Main 2, over to Main 1, and then probably going in the second entrance in at West Hobart to get into the ramps to unload the containers. And then we'll take the power back all the way through Eastern, back to Commerce. So with that, we'll get moving. Alright, first things first, gonna make sure the switches are lined ahead of us because we are not on a signal control. That one's good, that one is not good, and the one down there is not good either. So I'm gonna actually run outside, and we'll go down and throw some switches here. Come on up to this switch here, and then we'll go ahead and throw this switch. And then I gotta go get one more switch down there, but while we're doing that, I'm gonna radio my engineer, since I'm the conductor right now, tell him to start pulling forward, and he can pick me up when I get to that next switch. Alright, this is the switch I'm gonna throw here, so we can come out of the facility. And we'll go ahead and bring our power out here. There's a harbor stack coming out of Long Beach passing us right now. And then as soon as my power clears, we'll go ahead and throw the switch back. Start putting some locomotive brakes on since we're about to clear. And I'll go ahead and throw the switch back. Perfect. And we can go ahead and jump into the cab and head on down to the west end of Hobart Yard. Alright, coming up to a red signal here at Eastern Avenue. We are going to have to let the dispatcher know that we want to come through Eastern Avenue to go into Hobart Yard. So we'll bring it all the way up here to a stop at the red, and then when we get up there, we will tone up the dispatcher. Alright, stopped here at the red. We'll go ahead and call the dispatcher up and let him know what we'd like to pass through Eastern Avenue.
Dispatcher.
BNSF 5694 West, dispatch over.
5694 West, go ahead.
Coming out of the Commerce field pads, looking to get a light into Hobart Yard, over.
Alright, is your current lineup into Hobart okay, or do you need something else?
Eventually, we'll like to come back out of Hobart over to Main 4 to pick up at First Street Yard, over.
Okay, you're running out of Hobart, and then you want to cross over Main 4.
That is correct. 4 or 3, whatever's easier for you, just to get us to Olympic and into the First Street Yard for Baretable pickup. Over.
Alright, copy. Signal indication.
Signal indication, BNSF 5694. Thanks out.
Hey, give me a call when you get to the west end, and we'll see what you can light up out there.
Alright, give you a call when we get to the west end. 5694 out. Alright, there we go. We got our light. We have a flashing red now, restricting, so we'll go ahead and power up again. And we'll pull on through Hobart Yard. Alright, coming through Hobart Yard on our right-hand side right now. Also about to pass another train coming out of LA. And I'm actually going to stop up here to throw another switch. But I just realized it's going to take us a minute to get across to First Street today. It is really busy on the San Bernardino sub currently. We're going to have to try and pop out here and cross over to these tracks, and it looks like I showed up right when the Metrolink rush hour is happening, so this'll be fun. But that's railroad life for you, so we'll just get over when we can and head on over to First Street. But for now, we still got to keep creeping over through the yard. Alright, here comes another red at CP Hobart. We'll go ahead and call the dispatcher again and let them know that we are ready to come out of Hobart and head up towards First Street Yard.
Dispatcher answer.
Unit 5694 West dispatcher coming up to Hobart. Like to exit Hobart Yard and head over to First Street Yard, either main 3 or 4 when you can take us over.
Stand by with signal indication.
Signal indication, BNSF 5694. Thanks out. Alright, and there's our signal, diverging approach medium out of Hobart. Alright, let's go ahead and release the brakes, power up, and we'll head on over to First Street Yard from here. Looks like we managed to squeak through all the Metrolink traffic and the freight traffic. And speaking of Metrolink, there comes a Metrolink right now out of LA, heading on towards Fullerton and Points East. There goes Metrolink. So we're coming over the flyover now. That's going to get us on the one side of the LA River. It's also going to get us over the main line that goes into Port of Long Beach. And from there, we are going to pull into this yard just down here at the bottom of the hill, where we'll pick up our cars. You can see downtown LA here in front of us. And it looks like we've also got a red signal down at CP Olympic that'll get us into the yard. I have a wild guess here we're probably going to be meeting another Metrolink, since this line only sees usually passenger trains. So we'll bring it on up to the red, and then we'll bring it to a stop. Alright, we'll go ahead and bring it to a stop here. And as expected, here comes another Metrolink that's gonna go by us, and then we should be next to get into the yard here. You can see the Baretables will be connecting to just here off to the left of that Metrolink, and we'll bring those back to Hobart. And there we go, there's the restricting, so we'll go ahead and take the brakes off again, bring the power back up, and we'll go ahead and pull on into the First Street Yard for the Baretable hookup. And before anyone asks, yes, all those train sets are Amtrak trains, but there are no Metrolink train sets in Run 8, so we use Amtrak equipment for the Metrolink trains as well. Alright, let's go and bring the train to a stop here. We're off the main now. And we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to jump out of the cab. I'm going to walk down here to throw this switch. So we are going to need to get into a specific track, so we'll go and throw the switch. And then walk down and throw a few other switches. We're going to want to come up to this switch and throw it. And that's going to lead us into the correct track to pick up our Baretables. You'll notice we want this cut right here, and we're going to split it in half. We only have to take 4,500 feet of cars back to Hobart. I think this totals to, I checked earlier, was about 7,000 feet. So we don't need the whole thing, but we'll take about 2/3 of it back to Hobart. So we're going to get the locomotives prepped over here, and we'll walk back and do that. And then we are going to hook up to those cars, get all the brakes set up and everything ready to go, and then we will head on back to Hobart. Alright, so we've pretty much gotten everything ready here. What I've done is I've shut down the cab that we had going out, which was that Gevo behind here. We took that out. We're going to switch now to the BNSF 8462. The Ace that was trailing will now be leading. I've detached the EOT, turned off all the lights. So all we're now going to do is set this to be the lead unit. And then we can take over from this end. Next, we'll go ahead and jump into the cab. And we'll go ahead and make sure this locomotive is ready to go here. Engine run, gen field, fuel pump, DB are all good. We'll leave the gauge lights off, all the lights off, that's all good. Come onto the back here, in the run position, short hood lead. So we can put a headlight on to indicate we are active. We'll put a little bit of locomotive brake on here. So we're stationary. We'll go ahead and take the parking brake off, put the locomotive into reverse. And what we are going to do is we're now going to back up and hook up to the Baretables behind us. But before we do that, I'm going to actually jump off and walk to the back locomotive and protect the shove, which basically I will be telling the engineer how far he needs to back up since he can't see, and we'll sort of help him hook up to the cars. So we'll go ahead and turn on our little above screen here. Go ahead and release those brakes. And we'll go ahead and start backing up towards those well cars. There we go. Alright, let's go ahead and bring back another 4 cars. 3 cars. Start slowing down a little bit here. We want to be at 4 miles per hour or lower. 2 cars. 4 miles per hour or lower on the hookup. 1 car. Half. Put a little more brakes on. A little too much on the brakes. We'll go ahead and hook up. There we go. Perfect. We've hooked up to the cars. We'll go ahead and just idle the locomotive here and set some brakes here. And we are good now to start connecting the cars to our train. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and connect the air hoses. And before we do anything more, what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is start walking the train to where 4,500 feet of cars would be, which is car 61 on this cut. So I'm going to start walking down there. And while I walk, you guys are going to enjoy the power of YouTube editing. And I'll meet you down at car 61. Okay, here's car 61. So this is all the train we need to take. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and disconnect these cars from the rest of the train. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all close this angle cock valve. That's going to stop air from flowing through the train once we start charging the brake hoses up. This one I'll leave to open just to make sure if there is any extra air, it will rush out of the train, keep these cars stopped. We'll go ahead and disconnect the air hose, and I'll go ahead and open the 2 coupler pins. And that is all we need to do here. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to teleport back over to the front of the train because I'm lazy today. We'll come back up to the front. What we're going to go ahead and do here is we're going to go ahead and start bleeding air into the rest of the train. So this angle cock is open, which is correct. This one will put it to partially open, and that's going to slowly start bleeding air into this portion of the train. If I turn on these gauges, you'll see it's starting to push air into the train. You don't want to fully open it immediately though, because if you do that, that'll rush air in too quickly and it will put your whole train into emergency. So we're going to just slowly start bleeding air into the train, slowly charge the cars up. Actually, if I click on this car, you'll see we do have brake pressure slowly charging up to 71 now. So it's slowly coming up ever so slowly. And then once we get it low enough, we can go ahead and fully open the angle cock valve, and that will go ahead and fully push air into the train. I'll give it a little bit longer here. All right, we'll go ahead and open it fully, and there we go. And so we're going to wait for a few more minutes, let the air charge up on the back half of this train. Since there was no air pressure going through the hoses earlier, it takes a minute to charge the air in those cars and start to release the brakes. All right, should be good here to go ahead and release the brakes, see if the air is charged back up. Release. We see 90 here, and we see 88, so pretty close. Still taking a little bit of time to get charged, but good news is they're pretty much charged here, so we'll go ahead and go and set the brakes again down to 84. We'll go ahead and set my locomotive brakes all the way up to full, just so we are still stationary. And what I'll go ahead and do is, now that all that's done, we're going to go ahead and teleport back over to the car that we need to disconnect from, which is right here. Couplers should still be open. They are. And so what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and pull the train forward just enough to get this train unhooked from the rest of the cars we don't need to bring with us. So we'll go ahead and just have the engineer power up a little bit here, start releasing all the brakes. There we go. Go ahead and stop the train again. There we go, train stopped again, and these cars are here. Alright, now before we head back to the front of the train, I'm going to go ahead and finish up getting the back of the train ready. We're going to go ahead and attach an EOT device. What this basically does here is it acts as a couple of things. It's going to act as a marker light that if we were running at night, this would be blinking. It is also a way to monitor the rear brake pressure of the train. And the last thing it acts as is, well, it's not simulated in this game specifically, but if the engineer wanted to put the train into emergency and dump the air, they could do so by flicking a switch in the locomotive, and it would tell the EOT device to dump the air off of the back of the train rather than at the front. Now, to finally know if this EOT is working or not, we do have to open the rear angle cock. Now, if there was no EOT attached, that would dump the air and we would go back to zero pressure on the entire train. But with the EOT there, by opening the angle cock, it's going to rush air into the EOT device, and that way we can, 1, monitor the EOT pressure, and 2, also use the EOT as the rear marker. So I'll go ahead and open that. And that high-pitched squealing means that the EOT is working and the air is flowing through correctly. The higher the pitch, the more released the brakes are. So with that being good, we're going to go ahead and walk back up to the front of the train, which again means cue the YouTube editing and teleportation. Alright, back up to the front now. We're just going to double check again that we are connected on this side correctly. And we are all connected correctly, so we're going to go to the front of the train now, and we'll jump on and get ready to head back to Hobart. Alright, we're back in the cab now, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is verify all the train information is up to date, which I have now updated on the Depot Plus as well. We have a train length now of 4,442 feet, which checks right here. Our HBT is 5.8, and the weight is 1,561, which check here. TOB 26, 61 cars, 59 empties, and 2 locomotives. Axle count is 248, and we now have the BNSF 8462 leading, which I'll go ahead and update in the computer as well. All right, 8462 is now updated. And everything else is looking good on here. So we are ready to leave and head back to Hobart. But first things first, I'm going to plan my approach into Hobart. Okay, so the game plan for us is we're going to be going out of the First Street Yard back the way we came. And then per the Depot Plus computers, it shows ramps 7 and 8 are open at Hobart. So we'll pull this train in, get as much train as we can in at ramp 7, and then we'll take the rest of the cut and bring it into ramp 8, and then we'll run the power back to Commerce, and that will be it. So what we'll go ahead and do is we'll contact the dispatcher, let them know we're ready to go, give them our updated locomotive number, and we should be on our way here shortly.
Dispatcher answer room.
NSF 5694, dispatch over.
5694, go ahead.
I'd like to now show our lead locomotive to be the BNSF 8462 East. And I'd like to come out of the First Street Yard, head back to Hobart, and we'd like to head in at West Hobart into Ramp 7, over.
Alright, you'd like to go into Ramp 7. See what I got going on here to be signal indication.
Alright, signal indication 8462, thanks out. Alright, we got our light, got an approach signal, so we can take it up one more block, so we'll go ahead and release the brakes. Get our headlights on. Go ahead and let people know around us that we are moving. Start releasing the locomotive brakes. Get a little more power here. And away we go. Alright, we've left First Street Yard behind. Tracks to our right, this is the Amtrak servicing yard. So all Amtrak trains that terminate in LA will get serviced here. That includes the Sunset Limited, Southwest Chief, Coast Starlight for the long-distance trains, as well as the Pacific Surfliner for the commuter trains. Then all Metrolink trains are serviced up on the north side of Union Station. Alright, coming up to San Pedro Crossing here with a red, so I'm going to start slowing the train down. I'm using dynamics currently because we are on a steep grade. And dispatcher just called. We're going to be waiting on one here to run around us. That's what that diverging clear is on the track left to us. I'm assuming another Metrolink coming out of LA. Alright, getting a little closer. I'm going to go ahead and take the dynamics off and we'll go ahead and use train brakes. Bring it all the way to a stop. There we go. We're stopped waiting on whatever's coming behind us. Once they pass, we'll continue on into the yard. Alright, looks like we got a little bit of a party coming here. We got the one train that's going to run around us behind us. And then I got one freight coming, two freights actually, looks like. One freight and one power move coming through Hobart right now. So a little bit of a party going on here at CP Hobart. And by the way, both these trains up here, this freight and this little power move here, both are player trains, not AI, so we're not the only one out here. And there goes the train to our left. It is a Metrolink. So as soon as they clear, we should be getting our light into Hobart. Alright, here's our signal into the yard. We'll go ahead and release the brakes. Throttle up. We'll go ahead and start taking off the locomotive brakes. We'll head on into the yard. Alright, here we come into the yard. I'm going to go ahead and actually turn on the industry tags here just so I know where I need to spot my cars. The orange dots you see on the line, that's where we need to have our cars spotted for the industry configuration to work. So I'm just making sure that I know when I need to start my distance counter to stop the train. I'll go ahead and turn those off again. Go ahead and put a little bit of brakes on as well coming in. There's that manifest. And that power move sitting here. And we'll continue on into the intermodal facility. Alright, got some switches up here that we'll need to throw, so we'll go ahead and start bringing the train to a stop. And once we bring it to the stop, throw those switches, we'll continue into ramp 8. The first part of this train is going to have to go to ramp 8. We can't fit the whole thing into ramp 7. There goes another Metrolink on our right-hand side. Alright, switch is thrown. We pulled forward a little bit. We'll bring the train to a stop again, as we have fit our first cut of cars into ramp 7. So we'll go ahead and park the train really quickly, dim the headlights, and we'll go ahead and jump out of the locomotive. And what we're going to do is we are going to fly down to ramp 7. I'm going to turn on those tags again. As you can see here, the back half of our train is in the LAC tag. So a couple things we're going to do per the instructions of our train before we actually make the cut. Let's turn those tags off again. First things first, we're going to go ahead and select the first car. And you see how it currently says storage. We're going to go into the tagger here. We're going to go ahead and select all of the cars that you see here. All of these cars need to be changed to LAC. Kind of like that one down there that you can see. I'm going to unselect the 2 locomotives. We don't need those. We're going to go ahead and delete all of these tags and change them to LAC. LAC is the code for Hobart Yard. That way the industry configuration will know that there are cars here that need to be loaded, and they will eventually change to loaded from empty and will be tagged with something different to go to another destination. So all these now say LAC on them. We are good there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave that. And now if I turn the tags on, you'll see they're all empty LAC tags. So that is good there. We've completed that part of our checklist. All right, next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go fly down. Probably cut the train right about... Yeah, we'll cut it right here. I'm going to go ahead and come down to this car here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and close this angle cock valve, and that way we'll keep the air charged up on these cars. But as soon as I disconnect the air hose, all the air in these cars is going to rush out and lock the brakes up, and these cars won't move. So we'll go ahead and disconnect the air hose. And that loud hiss you just heard is all the air rushing out and basically the brakes going into a full brake application. And now we're going to go ahead and open the couplers. And we can go ahead and pull this part of the train forward. I'm going to go ahead and apply a few handbrakes before we do that. And with those handbrakes applied, actually I'm going to put one more on. Alright, with those handbrakes applied, we'll go ahead and release the brakes. We'll go ahead and pull the train forward. And there we go. These cars will remain here to be loaded. We'll go ahead and head on down to ramp 8. And here comes the end of ramp 8. We'll go ahead and set our brakes again, bring the train to a stop. And once that train comes to a stop, we can go ahead and disconnect the other part of our cars and update all the computer information, make sure everything's good there, and then we'll take the power back to Commerce. Alright, we're stopped. Go ahead and put this to neutral. Go ahead and jump out of the locomotive. Go walk down to the first car. Once we get down to the first car, we'll go ahead and close the angle cock on the locomotive. Leave this one open, disconnect the air hoses. And again, there goes all the air out of those cars. We'll go ahead and open the coupler knuckles. Set a few handbrakes. We'll go ahead and pull the locomotives forward. We'll bring it to a stop again. So now I'll go ahead and update the computers with all the correct information, and then we'll head on over to Commerce. Alright, all the information's updated in the computers. We'll go ahead and head back into the locomotives, and we'll head back over to Commerce Shops. Just make sure that these switches are aligned for us. This one's looking good. This one needs to be thrown. And then it looks like this one also up here will need to be thrown. So let's go ahead and throw these 2 switches. Go ahead and throw this one. Alright, we'll go ahead and radio our engineer, let him know to pull forward, and then we'll hop back on the locomotives here. Alright, engines are clearing the switch now. We'll go ahead and put the locomotive brakes on, bring the train to a stop. And I'll throw the switch back again. I don't want any trains. This isn't a mainline track, but I just want to make sure no one goes into the yard unexpectedly, so we'll go ahead and throw that back. We'll go ahead and head back up to the cab of the train. Another train down there coming into LA. We'll go ahead and jump on here. And we'll let the dispatcher know we also need to come through Eastern Avenue one more time, and we'll head on into Commerce.
Dispatcher into.
NSF 8462, dispatcher, just like a light at Eastern Avenue back to Commerce, shops over.
Signal indentation.
Signal indication, BNSF 8462, thanks out. Alright, there's our restricting. Go ahead and release all the brakes. Power up. And we'll bring this train all the way back to the Commerce shop, same spot we picked him up from. And in case anyone is wondering, that flashing red up here indicates restricting, which means that we're going to be entering an unsignaled territory. Basically go down to that 15 to 20 speed restriction when you're going through that area, and watch out for any other train movements that might be going on in that area when you get there. Okay, here we come back into Commerce shops. We'll go ahead and put the locomotives back where we picked them up from earlier. I'm not going to hook them up to the other locomotives, I'm just going to leave them right before there, but they'll still be really close just so that they can be refueled and reserviced before put on another train and sent off somewhere else. Bringing it nice and easy, start slowing down a little bit here. Go ahead and stop it right there. Perfect. We've made it back to Commerce. Alright, we'll go ahead and shut the engines down, put the reverser back into the center position. Go ahead and just put locomotive brakes on. We don't need train brakes since we don't have a train behind us. Locomotive brakes will hold it. Go ahead and set the parking brake, and that's good on the computer screens. And then we're going to do a full shutdown here, so I'm going to put this back into the isolate position. Lights back to single unit. And we'll go ahead and take all 4 of those switches back off. And there we go. We can go ahead and power down the locomotives for servicing, and we are good to update the computer that we've completed the run. Also, don't forget to shut your headlights off. Now we're good to log in the computer that the run is complete and shut down the engines. And there we go. As the sun sets, we've parked our train, shut down the engines, put them back into the fuel pads for servicing, and our trip is done. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content coming in the future. And I'll see you all in the next one.